Thank you so much for joining us today, everybody. And today's session is our Manager Monday. We will be focusing on developing instructor support structures and community. Our guest presenters today will be Dr. Christina Robinson from Houston Community College and Catherine Dowdy from Austin Community College. Today I am joined by my tech support and co-hosts. We have Wayne Cradle and Dr. Olga Escamilla. I will be your moderator today. My name is Liz Moya, so thank you to my team for joining us today. Today's session is on developing instructor support structures and community. It's a special focus on online instruction conversion from Dr. Christina Robinson from Houston Community College and Catherine Dowdy from Austin Community College. So let's begin with our first presenter. Our first presenter is Dr. Christina Robinson. She currently serves as the Executive Director of Adult Education for Literacy Programs for the Houston Community College System. In her role, she oversees one of the largest grant-funded adult education and integrated workforce programs in the state of Texas, with over $5 million in grant funding. Dr. Robinson spearheaded the creation of the Change Your Life for $20 program and Career for You Academy. Dr. Robinson, an accomplished leader and champion of higher learning, has been recognized for her leadership both locally and nationally. She was recognized by the Texas Higher Education Board for her work on student systems, winning the STAR Award in 2015. She was honored as the top 30 most influential women in Houston and top 10 most influential women by Houston Woman magazine. Dr. Robinson earned a bachelor's degree in communications from Texas A&M University and a master's of arts in organizational management from the University of Phoenix. She received her doctorate in community college leadership from the Rush Graduate Center at National American University with a dissertation on what can higher learning education learn from healthcare innovation. So at this time, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Christina Robinson.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So the first thing I wanted to do, first of all, is welcome everyone. As you all know, getting all of our faculty online has definitely not been the easiest of tasks. But I think over the last couple of months, we're definitely seeing this integration take place. And so, I've been talking a lot about digital transformation, and that's not just digital transformation for our staff, but that's digital transformation for our students and our faculty. So in aligning our faculty transformation, one of the biggest challenges for our faculty was student support. And not just how they provide that support, but what does that support look like? As you're probably aware, we face a huge challenge in the digital literacy skills of our students. And so not only are our staff seeing that on a day-to-day basis, but also our faculty, even getting that student to that initial classroom is a challenge. So when we were looking at how we make this happen and how we integrate faculty into the online conversion, the first piece that we had to look at was our curriculum and how that aligned to student support. So in working with faculty, we identified a variety of faculty, and we actually recreated our ESL, HSC, and IET programs to be in an online digital format, meaning that remote online instruction is very different than the face-to-face instruction. So because of that, we needed to have an online integrated syllabi and an online integrated activities, so that those instructors could make sure that they're aligning not just in the system, and for us, it was Canvas and still is Canvas and WebEx. So we put about 200 plus faculty through 2 weeks of training prior to March 30th. And in order to make that happen, it required a lot of structure. But once we got them learning what Canvas looked like, we then had to say, well, how does student support look? And so that really looks at the slide that we have today, which is how did we transform? So these are the different things that we had to look at for our faculty. And our staff, as I mentioned, student support. What does student support look like? And there's a session tomorrow that actually really goes in and drills down into the student support function, but today we're focused on instructors. The different one was having mentors. So we knew that our faculty, every single faculty had to be assigned a mentor. And with that mentor, it required different things for different faculties. Some needed to know, how do I actually get in and build an online syllabus? Some had to know, how do I host a WebEx? And so we've paired all of them up with mentors, and we're actually fortunate that our college has supported a stipend for those mentors, which is not part of our grant, which is just fantastic. And so now with those mentors, it's really helping those, I'll say, that are not faculty, online faculty savvy, to hone those online skills and understand the differences in face-to-face instruction versus online. We also had to bring in a lot of new tools and processes. If you've attended any of my prior sessions, you know, I've talked about OneFlow, which is a new system that we launched. And our faculty, for the first time, are fully now integrated in the student enrollment process as well as instruction process. And I'll show you that in a little bit. And so with that, we had to give them new tools, new processes in order to make that instruction effective. And then we had to say, what does a fully online digital experience look like for a student? And what does it look like for a faculty member? So we had to create a digital literacy process for our students and for our instructors in order to get those students up to speed. And then how do we leverage that capability? If you look at the next slide, so with that being said, when we look at the digital transformation, there were 3 key areas. And if you look, service delivery, efficiency, and alignment. So when we look at service delivery, what does that service delivery look like for our instructors? So we now know, and we've learned, that that service delivery for instructors has to be completely retooled for online instruction, meaning that our instructors now need at least a week prior to start to work with those students to get them ready for class. So we are now building a process for that. In addition to that, we know that no longer can we wait to test those students. We thought we could wait to test them until they got into class and then reassign them, but we realized, no, we need to do that virtual testing before class starts. And that also changes the process, because we used to have levels that we would put students into for instruction. Then we decided to do buckets of students because of not being able to test them. And now we're going back to levels. So as we look at the delivery for our instructors, now students are coming in, and that first week of class is going to be that digital literacy, and then they'll be assigned the appropriate level based on those testing skills. So that has changed a lot. Efficiency. So course scheduling has completely changed for our instructors. So in the past, we had instructors assigned by campus, and each campus actually determined how many students went to that campus, would determine how many students were in that instructor's class. Well, now online has completely changed this for us. And to give an example of that, last year we ran over 108 courses in summer 2. This year we're only running about 46 courses. Why is that? Well, the reason being is that now all of our courses go out and on our system, and our students pick the best date and time for their schedule. They don't pick an instructor. We have a max capacity of 22 per class. And so our students are now spread across the classrooms, so that we're having to actually run fewer courses with fewer faculty, but they're very focused classes. So because of this, what we found is we've been able to track our scheduling times. So our instructors can now run classes. For example, I would not have thought this, but a 12 to 3 o'clock is a highly popular time now for students to select. And so our faculty can now see what are the most popular times and say, you know what, I want to make sure that I have my classes at the most popular times. In the past, the faculty would choose the time, and then we would put out the course. Now the students are choosing the time, and the faculty are then saying, hey, I want to make sure I'm running my class at this time because I know I'm going to get students. So that has really changed the efficiency of our scheduling. And once again, it's purely based on student needs, not based on site. and we can daily see the fill levels of those classes. So if we need to reassign students, for example, we have 30 students that want one specific time, or actually 60 students, we can actually split those classes into 3 classes for that same time, and we don't have to worry about space or location. As you look at this slide, you'll also see alignment, and you'll see the COGS, because ultimately our digital transformation will go up. But in alignment, similarly, our students, staff, and faculty now are all using the same systems, so they're all seeing the same information. You'll see the student education and career plan. So now all of our faculty can see this plan, and it actually goes through all the details from the students' academic assessments to the training programs they're in, but specifically both faculty, students, and staff are now leaving case notes in their files. So if they need assistance or need a help, the faculty can actually push communication to our staff. And to give you an example, a faculty pushes communication, says, you know, I understand the student scored at this level, but based on what I'm seeing, you probably need to move them to a different class. Or this student's really struggling in digital literacy, we need to get them special assistance. So we really have a lot more flexibility on how our faculty engage with students. Our faculty also can send templates introducing themselves with their syllabi straight from our system without even having to worry about our Canvas system. So our students can get that information earlier and thus be supported sooner. And to give you an example, it can take an hour for a student to download a WebEx or get onto Canvas because they've never done this before. So once again, acting sooner rather than later, both for our faculty and staff, has made a big difference. So this has probably been the biggest piece that our instructors are just now beginning to utilize. And we've had to define it once for our Career for You Academy or IUT programs, and then a separate program for our HSE and ESL students because they all require different skills based on the different things that they need. So if you see this, each faculty now has a syllabi, and this is separate from the standard HSE syllabi that is strictly focused around digital literacy. So their first week of class, they're having scavenger hunts, and they're learning the fundamentals of computers and what are those applications. And so the first full week of class is nothing but focused on digital literacy. Why is this important? Because it's taking students 2 to 3 weeks just to learn how to be a digital student. So it's really hard to expect students to do those tests, to do those things that we typically require of them initially without them actually learning how to use the systems. So our faculty now are having to, we're teaching them on how to be more supportive in an online environment. We have a training with our faculty every Friday at 2 o'clock. They can log in. We call them One Flow Fridays. And they log on, and that is their opportunity not just to ask questions about our system, but how can I be more effective in the classroom? What other tools do I need to be more effective? And those meetings, it's all faculty regardless of kind of type of program that they're in. And so they also have that ability to share best practices. And it's really been dynamic to see how an ESL student can share with an HSE student on what are the best practices that they're using for their students, even down to little things from, hey, if you just put this little click button on your first email that you send out to your students, it makes a world of difference. So once again, bringing our faculty together with our staff every Friday at 2. Everybody says, why did you pick Fridays at 2? I said, because I know that's when you're usually available, but it gives us, if we do need to make any modifications, we have the whole weekend to make that modification happen. So I just showed just kind of a simple shot here, but it's about a 25 to 30 slide presentation with syllabus and activities for digital literacy. And that's what takes place that first week. And that really supports both the students and the faculty in that classroom to make sure that they can get the support they need. I believe we're on to Kathy, and then we're going to do questions at the end.
Well, we're taking questions now, and so I'm
Perfect.
looking at the chat pod to see what kind of questions we have. And there is one question, and this is more my question
Mhm.
because I don't know if any program would be willing to ask, but every program has a couple of folks that are a little resistant to change, and I know that you are an advocate for change management. So what happens to those that are a little resistant or, maybe are not on board?
Mhm.
How do you bring them to the fold?
Well, obviously, like anything, it's a change culture, right? Changing that culture is a challenge. But I think what we've been able to do, obviously, we didn't have a choice in this initiative. We literally did have to drag people along, unfortunately. But what we are seeing is that both staff and faculty are getting more comfortable. For those that aren't, some of them are now doing testing. Some of them are doing syllabi prep or tweaking things to make our syllabi even more effective. So there's a range of things that you can put those individuals on. But I think at the end of the day, and I've had this conversation both with our faculty and our staff, we're not going away from this online environment. I know people want to get back to face, and we probably will be back to face someday. We hope sooner rather than later. But even if we go face to face, we are not changing the online tools and processes that we currently have available. So, as we look at our faculty, we have had a variety of faculty leave the program or not meet the requirements of our program. Like, you have to get certified to be an online instructor. That is a certification now that we require. They have to go through specific training to be an online instructor. They have to go through specific training to be able to online test. Similarly, a face-to-face instructor doesn't and is not able to provide those same things because they haven't gone through those certifications. So we have had to hire new individuals who are open and adaptable to change, and then say for those that maybe aren't comfortable, look, we are willing to work with you, but at the end of the day, there's going to come a point where we either say, yes, I'm on board, or I'm not on board. And that's okay. There are programs that still potentially offer that face-to-face option. But if we're going to truly transform and support the students, and if you look right now, the volume of students coming into our system is really high. So we need faculty that aren't just in the classroom faculty, but faculty that can be mentors and supporters and coaches to our students at the same time. So I think that role of a faculty member in the new post-COVID, not to say it's changed, but it does look different because we're expecting more out of our faculty, I would say, than we maybe expected in the past.
Lots of information, great information. And I just simply want to restate what you mentioned, that there was flexibility from your leadership where, you were also flexible with your staff. Not everyone was meant for online learning. That was a curveball that we were all hit with. But
Right.
you also gave them the opportunity to say, well, let's see if we could make you online testers, or you're going to be working on the syllabus or on lesson planning or connecting with the students. So I think that's a really important quality and something to follow, that at the same time we need to be a little patient in onboarding our staff. So I appreciate that you mentioned that. And then on the long term, providing them with the training that they need, and then still conveying the message, all right, you still need to, this is the direction we're headed in, you still need to be on board, or something else is going to come of it. So thank you for sharing that. I'm looking to see if there are questions in the chat pod. There are no questions at this time. Well, there is one question that just popped up, and it says, how do we get certified? And I'm sure this relates to the online teaching.
Sure. So I think, we at HCC developed a certification for being an online faculty member. So, I don't believe there's a quote unquote online certification through TCOL or TWC at this time. But what I will say is, obviously they go through this initial online certification, but it's that constant training. And like I said, every single week, because they get that initial blast. And for us, it was this huge rush of 2 weeks of nonstop training, and everybody's head was kind of spinning on learning all of these new things. But now we have to go back and fine tune that. And that's the importance of that following up of training, because you can go over it once, you can go over it again, but until they actually start implementing that, they don't even necessarily know what they don't know. And so, we always say show, do, tell, review. And so it's really clear and everybody feels very comfortable. But it would be fantastic if we had an online faculty certification through TCAL. I'll just throw that out there.
Okay, and there are several programs out there, but that's typically regulated to a university or college that offers the online instruction. It's a special certification or even a degree. So it's not just an online course that you would take, but we will definitely, I'll take that as homework and see what we could develop or look into and provide that information. So thank you, Dr. Robinson. Again, if there are other questions, we will have another opportunity to ask your burning questions. At this time, we're going to go ahead and segue into our next presenter. And I'd like to welcome Ms. Catherine Dowdy. She's the Executive Director of Adult Education for Austin Community College. She holds a Master's in Educational Psychology from UT Austin with a focus on higher education counseling. Kathy has been working in adult and higher education and workforce for over 22 years, 18 of those years with Austin Community College in various roles in adult education and as counselor and instructor for the college. 4 of those years, Kathy worked for the Rural Capital Area Workforce Board. During the pandemic, Austin Community College held their students, over 2,000 of them, after the conversion to online classes, as well as in comparison to last year. So that's pretty big. That's with an 81% of students that carried over from face-to-face into online instruction. This means that of the 222 classes, they were converted to an online format, which meant that they had to train 140 teachers with over 2,000 students, like I mentioned. So lots of professional development going on. And so we have another expert in the house, and I'd like to welcome Ms. Catherine Dowdy.
Hi, everybody. Well, I have empathy for all the heat, but I also, it's July 13th, 2 days before our data lockdown. So I have empathy for everybody on that as well. So good shout out to everybody. I know everybody's working hard right now. So this is for developing instructor supports and structure. And so I'm just going to talk about how some of you may have already heard me speak in a session. TWC put on a presentation that I was part of that talked about the instructor online onboarding. So you may hear I'm going to repeat some of what I said then. March 13th, just like everyone else here, we were just sort of surprised, even though we saw it coming. We didn't really believe it was coming, and then ACC shut down. So that was the Friday before spring break. Our management team gathered together, and what we did was we created structure for our instructors, because we approached the onboarding of our instructors just like we do our students, because there was a big learning curve. They all had to learn the technology around online synchronous learning, as well as how to provide their curriculum. And our instructors, they have a heavy load, right? When they're in front of students, I was an instructor, I was an adult ed instructor, and those students look to you like you are the expert, real or imagined, part real, part imagined. And it's just a heavy load to bring in instructors, and all of a sudden they are expected to be digital literacy masters. And so we wanted to provide enough structure and PD for those teachers to feel comfortable going back into the classroom and doing real-time online instruction and doing it quickly. And we knew we had a heavy lift, and honestly, I didn't know if we could do it. And I want to do according to this. Okay, so what we set up to provide that is, over that spring break, we provided a definition, which again, when I read through it, I was like, I don't know, because we had already done some real-time synchronous learning with our distance learning grant, and it was challenging. We also, so we defined that. Then Debbie Talavera, which I always have to do a shout out for her, she She, along with some just very talented folks, that Susan Gussler, Mika Johnson, and a whole other team of really talented instructors, they took the lead on this, and we created, I think it was about 56 sessions for the week after spring break. And we also created a crowdsourcing document on, because we had 3 that could do real-time instruction. That was Google Meet. We were using Blackboard Collaborate Ultra, and then our final one was WebEx. Not very many people chose WebEx, but we didn't know that in the beginning, right? So we offered PD on all 3 of those, and we crowdsourced the information, because I certainly now I'm in charge of doing this myself, and I myself was not super knowledgeable. And I owned that. So to help our instructors move into this, I showed my vulnerabilities and my lack of knowledge, so that they would understand that we were all not experts and that we were in this together. Kind of created a whole team environment, that we've got this challenge, we've got to meet it. And we did not know if students were going to join us. That was the other unknown. But you have to create, I think it was important for us to create the non-expert environment, and then also the team part, because and the other thing is they were craving an expert to some degree. So we also had to it was a balance between, I'm not an expert, but I'm also going to provide you enough structure, because they had to feel safe, right? Same for our students. They need to know that you have the classroom management down and that they're in a safe environment, but at the same time, they need to feel safe enough to make mistakes. So it's a balance. So some of the things we did was define what, within data. We also continued curriculum PD in-house and through TCall. So we were bringing it all in, creating it in-house, but also utilizing TCall. We also created a whole system, which was really detailed, where we had curriculum mentors, but we also had, I say here policy, but it was data. So each instructor had a classroom curriculum mentor and a data mentor, because they went hand in hand, because you had to make sure that you were meeting TWC requirements. The mentors did class observations, as did each. We have 4 instructional areas. We have ESL, we have HSC, we have college prep, which is helping students become TSI complete, and then we have career pathways. So we divided that by program area, and we also had weekly meetings and continue to have weekly meetings in those program areas. But the classroom observations were done by both the supervisors of each area and the mentors. Then we also updated our faculty handbook and our SOPs. And then finally, our online class rosters were all redone over spring break to reflect these policies that we did, which shout out to Cynthia Law, because my gosh, that was a heavy, and she also organized all the data mentors. It was a lot of work, which I know all of you guys are doing. So are there any questions before we go on to the next slide?
There is one question, and it's from Joni Hill. It says, is there any published curriculum for college prep / TSI complete?
So Joni, I would have to get you with Sunita. I don't know that. I think right now, we have certain content standards for sure. And because with the new co-recs and so forth, our college prep has expanded. It doubled, more than doubled. It went 200% with the new co-recs. And we split out our level 1 and level 2, but I'd have to check to see with Sunita, who runs our college prep, but I can check, Joni, if you want to follow up with me after this. So I guess, Liz, we'll go on to the next slide.
And there is another question. With so many unknowns, how did you know how to develop an SOP, since everything was very fluid?
Well, it continues to be fluid. So we developed in-house SOPs. We have not yet sent those to TWC because of the dynamic nature, especially assessment, which I know you guys are all dealing with. Christina mentioned it. Assessment specifically, it's still yet to settle, because we've dealt with platforms. We've dealt with the fact that not all our students are going to be able to be assessed. That is a daily change So they're in-house right now, and we provide them, and that we have adjusted expectations, for the folks to know that. So we work from there, and then we tell everybody it could change. So that's how we're dealing with our SOPs.
Thank you. And no other questions at this time.
Okay. Oh, here we go. And I mentioned this already, that our class structures were redesigned and documented. And each mentor was assigned. So you talked about when we first initially went online and did the conversion, we surprisingly, folks, that because it was, that week of spring break, we went and redesigned. When we started back and everybody came back, and it was just 1 week of PD and so forth, people that at the beginning of the week said, I don't think I can. And it was really a few. It wasn't very many. By the end of the week, they felt comfortable and they were ready to go in to the classroom. And so we only had 2 out of, over 200 instructors that said, no, I've got to take a pass on this. And we, we didn't really have, for our hourly instructors, we didn't have many, because if they weren't technical in classroom, they weren't going to necessarily have the technical skills or the comfort level for assessment. So we did not have alternative assignments at that point, but they're always welcome to come back whenever they feel like it, or participate in our PD. It's sort of like a jump rope, and it's like whenever you feel like coming in. Now we not only had that heavy duty professional development that first week after spring break, it has continued until this day. And we also accessed the PD from TCAL, but we also, the college, of course, also went online. And so they offered PD as well. And so our instructors participated in that. So it just kept on going. So anyway, I'm gonna go through and make sure I hit all my bullets here. So they were redesigned and documented, which we kept that, and that's sort of in our SOP. The live online platform training continued. Curriculum support, we just through our meetings with our teams, our ESL and so forth, ESL, HSE, college prep, and career pathways. They did curriculum support within their program areas, and then shared, it was instructor to instructor. And, we all are an instructional unit. So everybody was sharing. And I already mentioned about the instructional and data mentors assigned. So I think I sort of covered that in the earlier slide. So we can go ahead, unless there's questions, I think we could go ahead and go to the next slide. So again, I mentioned that we have ongoing platform and curriculum training every week. The thing about ACC PD is, as I mentioned, they have a very robust professional development arm of the college, and Blackboard and Blackboard Collaborate Ultra, which is a tool of Blackboard, which provides the synchronous live online component, is the official instructional platform for the college. And so we've decided of our instructors, it was about half and half chose Blackboard Collaborate and half chose Google Meet. And I think there was only 1 or 2 that chose WebEx. And we made the choice for the fall to go into 100% Blackboard Collaborate, because for transition, for our students, and also for onboarding, so that we can train all of our students to be adept as they onboard into the classroom, which in turn supports our instructors, as you know, because the more we can pre-train those students before they get into class, the better. And if you can have one platform, it's easier for training and onboarding. And so that has been such a challenge, I just have to say. But the college also provided these 1-week sessions in Blackboard for their own instructors, and what it involves is an in-depth dive into Blackboard, and then they work with instructional coaches, designers, help them design their classes. And so that gives our teachers even more support, because again, they want to really know the curriculum they're presenting in. I think while this has been challenging, it sure is going to make us a better program. And so I'm excited about that.
And so we do have
So
some
anyway,
questions.
okay, let's do it.
So you had mentioned the data mentor. Would you be able to give a little more detail as to what that person did with the instructor?
Yes, I can. So so we have a data team. We are a larger program, and we have a data team of about four or five. And each one of those four, well, first of all, our head person took each one of our classes. We were already online recording attendance. And so what Cynthia did, because she's the head, she designs all our rosters. And so those are online, they're shared. And then we take physical sign-in sheets to back them up. That's in the face-to-face world. But to prepare for this online conversion, she took every single roster. She loaded in the only allowable platforms so that teachers chose that, and then they have to drop in their sign-in sheets every single day, actually. And then because the sign-in sheets changed, we knew that our instructors needed that training in addition to curriculum. So so our data team were assigned probably 20, maybe even 30 teachers, and they met with each teacher 4 or 5 times until they could, and they walked them through the process, which of course also provided them training for teaching. So it was really cool. So I hope I answered that question. So
Wow, that sounds really, that sounds like a wonderful team opportunity because they're learning from one another.
yeah, we'll say, as we went through this, our students and teachers they both saw class. Well, and not just, our teachers, our teachers too. They really, really, it was a place of respite really for what was going on outside. Our students really enjoyed it. Now, I don't know, do I have another slide, Liz? I'm not sure if I do. No. Can I do something real quick and share? We did feedback from our instructors for their experience. Can I share that real quick, some of their feedback?
Yes, you can share. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing here. And while we're waiting, I'm checking to see if there are any other questions in the chat pod. These can be questions for either Christina or Kathy, but okay, we can now see your spreadsheet.
So what we did was Sonia asked her teachers to share their testimonials about going online, and I just share some of these. So let's see. I want to read this one right here. Teaching ESL classes online due to the COVID-19 pandemic was definitely challenging, but it was so rewarding. Personally, it was a difficult transition from a traditional classroom teaching to online, but I learned a lot. But most importantly, I am so proud of all my ESL students. They did not give up, but continued their learning and completed this academic year successfully. It was wonderful to have a chance to meet virtually with all of some of the students' family members. My students and I have got to know each other much better, and we feel closer. Of course, we want to go back to a traditional classroom, but I can't overlook the benefit of saving gas money. And there was another one that I saw that just really got me. I don't want to take up too much time, but they really talked about one of their students was so lonely. Oh, here it is right here. Sometime in April, my single student felt very isolated being in quarantine in her small apartment. Our class was the one thing she looked forward to. One evening toward the end, she broke into tears, confessing her loneliness. She was feeling this whole COVID thing was really hard to deal with, the threat of the virus and no one to be near her or around her. So I'm going to stop sharing now, but I just wanted to, I love those testimonials. So
yes, thank you for sharing, because I think that's what it really boils down to, right? Despite all the processes and procedures that we must implement, behind every process and procedure, the ultimate goal is to reach out to the learner, right? We're impacting their lives. So that's what it boils down to. So sharing those testimonials reminds us of who we're serving. So I appreciate that you shared that. And we do have one request. Please share more testimonials.
do you want me to do it right now? Do you want me to share a few more right now?
Yes, why not? Yes.
Okay, sure. I will do that. Because they are, when I read these, when Sonia did this, I was like, oh my gosh, it was just,
Is there a way to expand the screen so we could read along with you?
yeah, sure. Let me
Of
see.
course, I know you don't want to share, like, you know, you want to maintain PII, but.
Well, I took that out already.
Oh, perfect.
Well, except that I know some of these folks, but let me see. Let's start it. Okay. This is one right at the top. And at first when I read this, I was like, what does she mean? But what she's saying is, she's speaking to people who read this, and this is from our instructor, and she says, are you scared of learning English online? Is technology difficult for you? This is okay. ACC's ESL instructors are here to support you to learn English with easy to use technology. It is even possible to do ESL class from your phone. You know, all you need is a positive, and then let's see. Many students have improved their computer skills and lowered their fear of computers simply by trying to do more. Some things work, some things don't. We're all learning. I think this really captures the spirit of everybody. We're trying, you know, that just really, I think kindness, and you're going to make mistakes. And so I think it's good to model that, and also to for teachers to model that to their students too. It feels uncomfortable, but in the end, it helps them as well. So anyway, the best experiencers are when a student is doing homework in their homework document, and I'm in the document at the same time showing them where they have the answers right and where they need to try again. And that has been a challenge for our teachers, is knowing how to, I think assessment on are you learning that's something that's been hard to transition to online. And our teachers are finding more and more creative ways to do it, and to maintain, again, privacy. And that's part of the reason also that we converted over to Blackboard, because in Google Meet, it's hard to ask students individually how are they doing, how far are they in their HSC progress, and so forth. And so that's why we like Blackboard Collaborate. And I'm sure Zoom, I'm not as familiar with Zoom, but I think as long as you can talk to people privately, you can maintain those interactions. So important. So just
sharing this did you use this as a mechanism to be able to just touch base with your teachers? Is that why you had the survey?
We have many, we do a lot of surveys. This was done at the end. You can see the dates. This is the end of our term 5, June 23rd. So this is as we move into our next term. And so, we were always touching base in different ways, surveys, meetings, and this was just at the end of our term 5. And I don't have access to the one for students, but we're also asking our students. So we're doing that as well. So it's been great. And just like sometimes it's scary to ask students if they're learning. It's also scary to ask our instructors, and so because you're scared to get the answer, to be honest, right? Sometimes because then that means you have to do more work to help them.
Yes.
But, anyway, it's okay. It's okay. It's tiring, but it's been okay. So I'm going to go ahead and stop on this one.
And we do have 2 more questions. And I don't know I believe you touched upon it, but just to make sure, it says,
Sure.
Are your instructors familiar with Blackboard? And how are they adapting to the transition?
And I'm sorry, I throw this out. We have about 150 actually, it's more like over 200 teachers. I really forget. Because and we also, yes, we are able to complete class observations in Blackboard. You just have to have the link, and you just go right in, just like the instructor. They just bring you in, like a student. You can just come in and do your class observations. And that's also how our assessment team is going in. They get the link, and our advisors who do visits, classroom visits, and so forth. They just get the link and they go in. Are our teachers familiar with Blackboard? About half of them chose Blackboard initially, and then half did Google Meet because it seemed less intimidating. Some of those same teachers chose that because it was easier for students, although you know, as we evolved, we found out Blackboard can be just as easy. And Blackboard at first glance seems more challenging, but it's not so bad. And then it allows for more creative classroom. I think as teachers got familiar with Google, they were better moving into Blackboard. It was like a stepping stone for them. Because, hey, I've already done live online. Now I'm ready to move into Blackboard. You know, it's like any curriculum. It's teachers get used to it and they want to stay where they're comfortable. And we're also tired. We are very tired. So it's so much change, so much learning. So hopefully we can have a settlement. I will say we have gone a little bit face-to-face with our IETs. And I just got word one of our students has COVID. So, you know, that's a warning on why we are online and why we will stay online.
Oh, well, that's a shame. That's just so sad. And
It is.
It is unfortunate, but I know that, you know, we're kind of itching to go to face, and it's just unfortunate that had to happen. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and open up the questions, and Kathy and Christina, if you want to share your video, and I'm going to allow folks to ask any questions that is on their mind, and you could do so at this time. And there we do. We have both of our presenters. Thank you. And so I do have another question. There are some programs, and I'm looking at the state data. Not everyone transitioned online because some folks were waiting, you know, for guidance. Some were trying to see and learn from others. For those programs that are just starting now in July, what recommendations would you make to those program directors and their lead teams as far as a professional development? What's some sage advice you could share?
Well, I was just going to say, treat your staff and faculty like your adult ed students. That's how.
Yeah, and I think also I would put together a very clear schedule with a flow, make it super structured. And the reason for that is, remember, you've got staff, you've got students, and you have faculty, and each different group needs a specific kind of development. And if you have the ability, definitely leverage all the people that have already done it, because it was a lot of work to get it done, and we're still refining and tweaking every day. But I would have separate plans for each group. And you know, fortunately, we have this amazing online tool now. I know we're about to do our instructor development week. It'll all be online, and they log on every night at 6 p.m. to take their development for an entire week and a Saturday. So, you know, as you think about that, how can you build it to where they have that consistent follow-up? Because I'll tell you, the instructors need someone to call. They need that mentor. So I would start with that mentor team if you have that ability, and say, who are those mentors going to be? And then they almost become team leads for your instructors.
Wonderful advice. I was speaking and I was muted. So thank you so much for sharing that. And at this time, I want to thank you both. Thank you, Ms. Dowdy. Thank you, Dr. Robinson, for spending your afternoon with us. And I want to thank everybody else for joining in today. I also want to thank Dr. Olga Escamilla and Wayne Cradle for being with us today. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day and your week. Please stay safe. Stay indoors, stay cool, maintain that social distancing, and we'll see you next month. Thank you, everybody. Take care.